Eric Schmitt, Missouri Rising Action, polling on McCaskill in Hawley. He is joining me now on the live line to talk election 2018. Hi, Eric.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, you know the liberals are going nuts because they're becoming violent.
Oh yeah, I think this Kavanaugh thing woke a lot of Republicans up as far as the tactics that are being used by a lot on the left, and I think that the polling now in a lot of these states where these Senate races were hotly contested, including Missouri, you're starting to see Josh Hawley, for example, who's the Republican candidate, taking a lead now because I think people understand what's at stake. The Supreme Court is obviously very, very important, and Claire McCaskill was on the wrong side of that, just like she's been on the wrong side of Judge Gorsuch, just like she was on the wrong side of tax cuts, just like she was on the wrong side in being the deciding vote on Obamacare. So Claire McCaskill's really out of touch with Missourians, and people are starting to wake up and see that.
Yeah, I mean, she's in touch with a few Missourians, but not the majority of Missourians. And when you have rule of law, it's majority rules. It's just the way it is. So,
well, and the other thing, I think the other thing that's worth pointing out, just last week, and I think this video is particularly devastating for Claire McCaskill. She was caught on video, essentially discounting whole swaths of Missouri. She said, I don't really need the boot heel votes if I get enough votes in St. Louis County. So, I mean, discounting rural Missouri in a broad stroke like that really does demonstrate how out of touch I think she is and how reliant she is really on the Chuck Schumers and the left and the money that she's raising there, the talking points that she's parroting now. And it's just, I think it's upsetting to a lot of Missourians, and it's starting to show in the polls.
All right. So the Kavanaugh bounce is definitely a thing. They're trying to say it's not, but it is because, Supreme Court lives matter. But they're saying it happened too early and that something else is going to come up as the October surprise. Because, I mean, the election is a couple of weeks off yet, and anything could happen between now and then.
So I disagree with that. And I ran statewide 2 years ago and won state treasurer along with the rest of the Republican ticket, including Josh Hawley. And I can tell you, on the ground, it's when you're running, it's an incredible life experience because Missouri really is culturally a really diverse place, right? Mm-hmm. The boot heel in Southwest Missouri and St. Louis and Kansas City, it's an incredible life experience. But when you do that, you get a sense of what's happening in people's lives, and there's an energy with the crowds and the people that you talk to. And when we got to the last couple of weeks, what became very clear, not just in the presidential race, but in Roy Blunt's Senate race, was that people understood the importance of the Supreme Court, who was going to be president, who was going to be picking judges, who the Senate was, and confirming and saying yes or no. And so I don't think that this thing's going away. I think what's happened is the Kavanaugh hearings and his confirmation has brought that issue back to the front and center and back to the fore of people's thinking about what's at stake in this election. And I give Missourians more credit than that. They understand what's at stake. They're going to remember Claire McCaskill was on the wrong side of that, just like she was with Judge Gorsuch just a year and a half ago.
So when you're looking at the polling, Eric, do you see a sharp shift away from McCaskill after the Kavanaugh deal?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so essentially, just to kind of give credibility to the polling, it showed Josh Hawley down a little bit back in June. And so that started to tighten up, after the primaries, as you would expect. But this 8-point lead that was shown in the poll last week, and what you're starting to see in some other polls that range, some are within the margin of error, some show Josh a little bit out in front of that. But what you see is, and what's undeniable, is a trend. There is a trend moving in that direction, which is a good thing. It's Republicans saying, look, we know what's at stake. It's a lot of independents recognizing the circus that took place in those hearings, in the politics of truly personal destruction and search and destroy and all that stuff. It just did not, it totally backfired on the Democrats. And so I think Republicans are more energized. Independents saw that, and I think that's why you see Josh pulling away a little bit in the polls.
Right. And in my home state of North Dakota, I don't think height cap comes back from the bump downward that she saw behind Kevin Cramer. I just don't see her coming back. So it looks like North Dakota's out of reach.
Well, and look, yeah, and that's good for Missouri, right? And Tennessee looks like it's trending that way too. The other thing I think that's true is, and what doesn't get a lot of talk, is those senators who voted no, they made a decision, and this is Claire McCaskill too, made a decision to side with Chuck Schumer the money and the energy on the coasts so that they stayed in line with how they wanted them to vote on that. Because there is no way you could make a credible argument that if you were representing Missouri values and the people of Missouri, that you could vote against Judge Kavanaugh or Judge Gorsuch. They're both highly respected judges who've been vetted. To vote no on that really is a signal of where their priorities are. And they're just saying, look, we're going to take our chances and hope, Hollywood and New York sends enough money to get us across the finish line.
Well, and that's exactly what it is, because they are pandering to the people who are giving them money for their campaign, not the constituents of whom they are supposed to be representing. And that's indicative of the way they've been acting, and it's indicative of where the money is coming from. So,
it's actually very cynical too, right? It's cynical to say that I can get through these last 3 or 4 weeks. And the people in the boot heel, as Claire McCaskill said, I can afford to give up a few votes there. I mean, those are her own words. Mm-hmm. And so it's not like anybody's making this up as some, great work of fiction. I mean, this is what's happening. I mean, she's actually saying, I think the difference in this cycle is, these things are on tape. It's very clear. People can see it. Josh is running a good campaign, getting his message out. And I think all of that leads to, in about 3 weeks, hopefully, we can take this seat back for the people of Missouri.
That would be nice. And I love that they're using nicknames now because they saw it worked for Trump. So now they're calling him Golden Boy. I think that's hysterical. It's Golden Boy to who? It's just silliness. But anyway, Eric Schmitt is with Missouri Rising Action. It's a name you know. He's run for state office successfully in the past. And now the polling between McCaskill and Hawley is showing a bump for Hawley after the Kavanaugh fiasco, if for lack of a better word. Eric, how do they learn more about what y'all are doing?
Well, they can go to the website, they can find out, but we just encourage people more than anything. Just stay engaged, stay vigilant, make sure you get out and vote. Talk to your neighbors. I mean, look, I still believe that politics and these elected offices that people get sent to do are really important, and that's neighbors communicating with one another face to face. And so I just encourage people to stay active, stay engaged, go vote, and let's get Josh in the United States Senate here in a few weeks.
Let's do it. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.